Major Garrett is at the White House. Major, we want to start with the latest reporting that the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and former advisor KT McFarland were the senior Trump transition officials who spoke with Flynn about his contacts with Russian officials. How significant is this, given they both still have roles within the administration?
Right. KT McFarland is the current Trump administration nominee to be the next ambassador to Singapore. That's pending Senate confirmation. This development may short-circuit that confirmation process, or certainly delay it. And of course, Jared Kushner remains a senior advisor to the president, an active participant in almost every conversation in this White House about domestic policy, politics, and he is the president's lead negotiator in attempting to create an atmosphere for productive talks on achieving Middle East peace. And by that, this administration means a resolution of the decades-long dispute between the Israelis and the Palestinians. So both of these people, KT McFarland, Jared Kushner, significant players during the campaign, during the transition, and with significant roles still here in this White House. Although KT McFarland was once Michael Flynn's deputy, she was moved out of that role. Ambassador to Singapore, not nearly as central, but nevertheless someone who is an important voice in the president's thinking on foreign policy issues. Now, they're significant players. The revelations in today's court documents place them, based on our reporting, at the center of these two important conversations about Trump transition, engagement with the Russians on some pretty important issues. That suggests two things, neither of which is necessarily criminal or conspiratorial. But the things that they suggest are as follows: that the Trump transition had a very easy and high-level relationship with Russians almost from the beginning of the Trump transition. That in itself is somewhat surprising, considering that Russia was and still remains a rival nation of the United States. And by this time, meaning the time of these conversations, the Russians had already been accused by the Obama administration of meddling in the 2016 election. So rival nation with suspicious behavior. Nevertheless, the Trump transition was willing and able to frequently engage the Russians at the highest level about some pretty sensitive foreign policy issues. That's interesting. Not necessarily criminal, not necessarily conspiratorial. The other thing it suggests is that this transition team, which denied repeatedly high-level engagements or dealings with the Russians during the transition, and this White House, which also repeatedly denied engagement with the Russians and interactions with the Russians, those denials, at least at some level, have been undermined by these court revelations today. Neither of those things are necessarily criminal or conspiratorial, but they certainly are interesting.
Absolutely. And so what has the president's reaction been to these latest developments and to the Flynn news?
Well, the president was informed this morning about this, and to say that this has been something that those close to the president have been anticipating with some degree of dread would be an understatement. And the dread that was anticipated did not come to pass, meaning there is no indictment, there is no plea deal about anything related to Flynn and the Trump campaign or actions that Flynn took on behalf of those exercising control of his actions within the White House itself. And for that reason, the president this morning did not express much frustration, I'm told, or anger, and had a sense of sadness for Flynn, and certainly deep regret that a three-star retired general would admit to lying to the FBI. That's a significant offense, not only in the culture of the military, but just in criminal law itself. But the president looked at this plea agreement and said, doesn't deal with my campaign, doesn't deal with anything I ever told Flynn to do or not do, and his criminal behavior is his and his alone. And that's why the president, at least today, and those who are advising him legally, continue to cling, and it might be a misplaced clinging, to the notion that this investigation is nearer to the end than the beginning.
All right, Major Garrett, thank you for that.